name is Maya, and I am the VP of Events for SACR, the Student Alliance for Prison Reform. We are Northeastern's one and only prison reform coalition on campus, and we we put on demonstrations, rallies, and live events like the one that you're at tonight. If you're interested in checking us out, you can find us on Instagram at SAPRNU or at our weekly meetings, which take place every Monday at 6 p.m. in 346 Prairie, which is upstairs on the 3rd floor. Please hold all questions to the end, as we'll be opening for an audience Q&A, as well as an opportunity for you to network. I'm excited for you to meet the panelists and our moderators, so please join me in welcoming them all to the stage. Hello, everybody. How are we doing tonight? Love it, love the energy. And welcome to all of our wonderful panelists. Thank you for joining us tonight. All right, so quick little introductions here, just to get to know everybody up on this stage. If you could each share with us your name, your pronouns, and a brief overview of your organization and your mission. So we can start right on this end. Stephen.
Hi, I'm Steve Provost. I'm from Boston, Project Rebound Reentry Services. We started in November of 2018, and we currently serve somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 40 individuals here in the Boston area.
Yes, okay, perfect, thank you.
Hi, my name is Latoya Whiteside. I'm a senior attorney and also the founder and director of the Race Equity and Corrections Initiative at Prisoner Legal Services in Massachusetts. I guess Mac and I work for the same organization, so I'll give you the overall broad overview of PLS, and Matt can give you the overview of RAICI. So Prisoner Legal Services, essentially our job is to ensure the humane treatment of incarcerated persons. Can you hear me fine?
Yeah.
Okay. To ensure the humane treatment of persons incarcerated throughout Massachusetts, we provide services to both individuals housed in state prison facilities as well as house corrections. We're a fairly small organization. We were founded in 1972 at the wake of the Attica riots. A lot of what we do includes litigation. We do systemic advocacy. We do a lot of individual advocacy as well as policy and legislative support. Roughly, we are a staff of about 10 attorneys. And so that ratio is 1 to 1,500 individuals. So as you can imagine, it's a lot of work. We're a very small, limited resource office, but I think we do a very good job of just being able to provide services and support for our clients. I think you want to talk about RAICI in particular, or our priority areas. I forgot to mention that we focus a lot on access to medical and mental health care. We also deal with a lot of police brutality or correctional officer assaults on prisoners. We also address issues of extreme confinement as well as solitary confinement, and then of course RAICI.
Hi, my name is Mac Hudson. I'm the community liaison for Racial Equity and Correctional Initiative, which we call REICI. I'm also the paralegal for that project. And what REICI actually does is it really advocates for Black and Brown folks who are incarcerated throughout the Department of Correction to attack systemic racism, in which is prevalent throughout the Department of Corrections. And what we do is also by way of, I should say, legislation, sometimes litigation, if we cannot actually sit down with the administration and work out some sort of reasonable resolve to some of the issues. I think one of the most pressing things, and I hope that at some point you guys become more familiar with the movement, is that there's a bunch of legislation that are impacting incarcerated folks right now, and in particular, we have an oversight bill that's pending in the legislature to address some of those concerns. So I would love to invite you guys out to an event that we're hosting September 30th and talk more about that at another time.
Thank you all. It's wonderful to have you here. A lot of
different perspectives within this field of prison reform. And I know a lot of the people in our audience who are studying criminal justice are very interested to hear about what a typical day might look like in your role. So we'd love to hear that from you. Stephen, would you like to start?
Our work hours are 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. I try to basically leave Saturday and Sundays just to relax. Basically just to relax and just get my stuff back together for another week. But basically, during the week, we might be answering a phone call from a family of somebody who's currently serving correction time. And they basically ask us, what can you do to help us? And or I might be answering emails from different organizations that my organization works with. And it's just a whole bunch of different things, and even working on our organization's website as well.
Thank you. Latoya?
I think typical would be the last adjective that I would use to describe my
Bluetooth mode.
experiences. If you enjoy a career or an environment that is dynamic, to say the least, and you will never know what to expect each day, I think this would be a great area. As I mentioned before, not only do we do litigation, which is partially what really attracted me to this field, is that you get to touch upon so many different areas. So even as an attorney, I'm not only focusing on doing litigation, I have been exposed to writing legislation. I actually drafted the bill that Matt referenced, and if it passes, it'll be the first of its kind in the country. So I'm getting experience with legislators, with in the political arena. We also do a lot of systemic advocacy. So we really have a lot of leeway to be solution oriented, and that's something else that I like. So it's at PLS, we get a lot of autonomy to really develop programs around issues that clients bring to our attention. So for example, with REICI, we really try to think outside of the box, and we recognize the importance of allowing individuals who are directly impacted to actually be the expert of their experiences. So we take a lot of direction from our clients. So right now we developed a program called the Prisoner Empowerment Project, in which we're actually employing persons who are currently incarcerated. I'm not sure if you all are aware, but most individuals, if they're lucky enough to obtain institutional employment, they make 50 cents a day, sometimes $1 a day. And they're working 8, 12 hours, 40-hour weeks, and they're making roughly not even $10 per week. And that is certainly not on par with what they're being charged to access canteen, to contact their loved ones, to send emails, to make phone calls. And so it's really, to be very honest, it's really synonymous with slavery. So we developed a project that would actually pay prisoners minimum wage, or essentially minimum wage, for the amount of hours that they work. And work with them closely, they service
I text you.
did a lot of
I text you because I'm on a Zoom, but I saved your spot in front of the house. So for you to call me when you're on your way home, so I can move the truck.
getting a microphone or access to what you
All right. Bye-bye.
a lot of what we have. Said I've never even heard of in the community because of the lack of hygiene, poor sanitary conditions, the lack of access to appropriate products. So we also have a canteen project in which we're pushing to be able to, for particularly BIPOC prisoners, to have access to things to support their the upkeep of their hair, to support the upkeep and maintain moisture in their skin, just very basic things that they're being deprived of right now. So we have a number of different projects. What other projects? I think the point is that it's a very kind of dynamic environment, but I also think that it can be stressful if you allow it to be. So I'll try to keep a model that the focus is on the battle, not the war. So every day it can be a small victory. It can be the fact that a client has appreciated being heard. we take for granted just having someone to talk to. Individuals who are incarcerated, a lot of them don't have the family support. So the only individuals that they're talking to are individuals who work within the system, and 9 times out of 10 view them from this animalistic perspective and don't treat them humanely. So just having the opportunity to be heard. I have a lot of clients who, you know, appreciate that significantly. And so just that can even be a small win. So yeah, I think what we do on day to day, it definitely varies, but you either love the work or you don't.
So I just like to add, from my position, I get to go into the community and kind of advocate on behalf of REICI, all the initiatives that we're working on, inform the community about why they should care, and then really show us the common interest. And part of that is to create discussions in and around with sometimes folks who are in opposition. We've had several meetings today with legislators. That was an all-day process, but something that we look forward to because it's part of advocating and advancing an issue, but it also gives us the opportunity to hear from opposition and get and learn about how they see things and from their perspective in order to create a meaningful dialogue, right? And so part of that, which I love, is that, you know, we get to really be the voice for a population of folks that don't have a voice, right? And then we create positions so that they do have a voice, some of which have been able to now testify live in legislative hearings, something that has never been done before, right? And so I think that if you love serving, you know, and you want to help people, you know, we start at the lowest of our community folks that really need the help, right? And so this was the field that you could really be impactful in many ways. You know, so I think the point that Latoya was making was that it's not one thing exactly that we do at Prison Legal Services, it's a multitude of things. And you have the autonomy to kind of have the creative right to figure out how to fix the problem, as opposed to using the standard tools in the chest, right? Which is typically litigation and what have some of the projects she talked about were projects that were newly designed to address systemic issues that have been ongoing for decades, right? So I think that if you love to serve people and you love to, let's say, there's some law aspect and you love to really connect with folks, I think, you know, here's a population that's deserving and needing. That's, you know, desperate.
Yeah, I think kind of going off of that, we've talked about so many things already. I know a lot of change is happening right now. You know, you spoke about initiatives, there's constantly change and evolution happening in this field. So this is a question for anyone who would like to answer it. How do you see this field changing in the next couple of years? And what do you think that could mean for people who are just now coming to, you know, wanting to work in prison reform?
So I would say, I think for the first time in a long time, you see almost the resurrection of an Attica mindset in a more positive conduit way, meaning that you have a lot of men and women who are using the processes available to them, right? That has the rebelliousness in them to say enough is enough. And they're creating initiatives that are actually forming out here in society, some of which is the joint venture, no longer 3/5, which deals with the emancipation initiative of trying to reinstate the voting rights of incarcerated folks. The joint venture is for those folks who were unlawfully convicted that never committed the homicide that they was a partner with, but they was given a life sentence, some of which didn't even know that was going to happen. You know, so we're seeing the empowerment, but that empowerment starts with the community support base, right? In which supports the people from behind, or the community behind the walls. And so as I see the change happening, I see that the more of the community's involvement and the willingness to kind of support these initiatives and to stand and say, or be aligned with what is right, you know, as you guys start to mature into the responsibility and become the next group of leaders, I think that will just become stronger, that connection will be stronger, that voice will be stronger, but most of all, when you get into these positions, you will be able to affect those changes that we may not be able to in our present situation.
And if I may add a little to what Matt has mentioned, I think we are kind of on the cusp of change where we're coming full circle. So the 80s, it was this rhetoric about being tough on crime. And so numbers drastically increase of individuals being incarcerated. And I think where we are now in society, we're starting to realize that our criminal justice system is broken. It's not working the way that we anticipated back in the 80s. And so what we're now trying to focus on is how do we rebuild this? How do we make this a model where the focus isn't punitive, but actually what it was intended to be, which is to be rehabilitated. And so I think that your generation, being that I think the morality, the moral compass is different. Definitely different when it comes to race equity issues. And so I think that individuals coming up behind us will be more willing to take that into consideration, and hopefully we're leaning more towards restorative justice as opposed to a punitive justice system. And so yeah, I have great hopes for the future and definitely believe in you all. And I hope that you know, you will consider prisoner rights as a career option, because I think it's certainly a population of the voiceless and individuals who are forgotten. Generally, when I tell someone that I'm a prisoner rights attorney, they automatically assume I'm a criminal attorney. So I have to explain, no, I do civil litigation. I help people who are already incarcerated, and at least people kind of scratching their heads like, well, why would you help someone who's currently incarcerated? So it's this kind of out of sight, out of mind mentality that we forget. Once someone goes behind the wall, they're still humans, they're still people, they still deserve, you know, basic necessities like medical care. And it's not happening because we don't have enough transparency behind the wall. We don't have enough people remembering that we have a whole population of individuals, and more importantly, population of individuals who will be returned to society, 90% which are society. So we have a moral obligation, we have a moral responsibility to ensure that we're actually rehabilitating those individuals who need the most help and the most fragile in our communities. And that's certainly prison.
From a person who's actually myself being formerly incarcerated, I do hear you loud and clear, and I know that our correctional system is currently constantly, especially here in the Boston area, is a major revolving door. People come in and just when they get out of release from corrections, basically they don't know how to live here in the streets of Boston. And what I'm seeing is that they want to commit crimes to get back and do, you know, to do more time, because they just don't know. So my organization came along after being a part of, well, both myself and my partner, Michael, we were formerly a part of another organization called New Start Project, which sadly closed their doors. And I told people that I was working with in that organization that this particular mission of helping people who are coming out of the correctional system, it's too bad, it's badly needed here, especially here in Boston and across the country. And a lot of people that have spent 40, maybe 50 years, who knows how long they've been in corrections, but they need the help badly, especially people who have come out of the correctional system. They need to know how to use a cell phone, how to use the MBTA system, because the MBTA system is so complex. You know, you have to get from point A to point B here to see, even to make a doctor's appointment, to go to probation, even to go to different treatment programs here in the Boston area, because they're spread all over the Boston area. So my organization actually teaches people by using what's called peer navigator to teach those people how to get around the city of Boston. And I'm really thankful to our peer navigator who actually does that help. But we constantly have people calling, looking for different things that might help the individual. And I'm thankful that we have a partnership with Suffolk County Sheriff's Department so that we can meet up with the client before they get out of the correctional system and find out what they need exactly so that by the time they get released, they already have a lot of stuff already hooked up with it for them so that we just hand them what they need and they're already ready to start off on their journey back into society. And we have, at least right now, we have two of our clients that have made it to the point where they have housing, they have a roof over their head, they have a good job, so they have everything they need. I'm really proud of these two individuals, and I'm looking in the future to have more great people like that. But we need people in the front lines, such as yourself, when you're getting ready to pick up this type of career, to get ready to help these people because they really badly need it. And I know for a fact that our correctional system right now is, especially on the state side, and even in the Suffolk County Sheriff's Department, both Suffolk, the South Bay, and National Street, they're completely full of people in there. And there's just so many people go around, even in the having correctional officers that are there that and staff there that can only help so many because their caseloads are so full. Even our 112 Southampton Street is full of people right now that are doing who knows what in the streets of Boston, and that's where it starts, and it begins to build and build and build until they end up behind bars. So I know that there's a big shift right now to get more jails set up here in the Boston area, but we'll hopefully that with great people in the front lines that may change.
Yeah. Building off of that, I have a question just for you. I know we've talked a lot about.
Oh yeah.
We chatted on the phone. We've talked about how your organization collaborates with so many different groups.
Oh, we have some great partners.
Yes. And I know you just mentioned that this is also something that's growing as we realize that there's so many needs that aren't being met. So yeah, I guess we're just wondering, how does your organization collaborate with these groups and how does it help the reentry process?
Well, depending on when a person does our initial intake, or we call it ISP, individual service plan, which is kind of part of our intake form. It kind of gives us an idea of what the client might need. But say for instance, if the person needs a laptop computer, we've hooked up with an agency here in Cambridge that actually can provide and actually not only give them hands-on how to fix their computer and how to get it working so it keeps working the way it's supposed to. The agency in Cambridge actually teaches them, and actually for low-cost individuals that can't afford it, they give them a computer system for $50 with a lifetime warranty, and you can't beat that anyplace. Even if these people cannot go to say Best Buy and pick up a really nice computer. They can't do that because they don't have the money. But with this particular program, they can do that with a low cost. One of the other organizations we have is one that will, if the client is ready for the work world, they can go and just do a couple hours of volunteer work for the organization and get a whole entire nice thing for an interview or for their job or whatever it might be. But it really helps them out big time. And part of that is giving them an MBTA card to help them get to those locations. Because they can't get those locations unless they have an MBTA card or some way to get there. And a lot of times they don't have that unless they have to wolf it, as they might say. So, and then the list goes on and on through Boston, and we're constantly looking for new partners to partner with, because I think the more partnerships, your organizations, what we work with, and hopefully Prison Legal Service will be one of our newest partners. I hope we're working on it. We're working with these people again to talk because we're constantly because the core issues that we've seen. A lot of people are having a hard time getting housing. Is a big issue because I've had a lot of calls looking for housing, and the other one is work jobs here in the Boston area. Because building on that, we have just recently there's an organization, another one in Cambridge called the Bridges Returning Citizen Center, and they actually have an office right within the Mass Hire offices in Cambridge, and So we can send them there to help them with whatever, getting a resume done, looking for jobs. And they have individual help from their staff to help them look for that job, keep them active and looking for work. So that's something that we're working on and constantly going on.
Yeah, it's great work. And I will say on this topic of growth in our system, I know Northeastern is now offering an opportunity for students to teach career workshops to people who are incarcerated in the reentry process. So that's something that a couple of us in SAPR are going to be doing this semester. Yeah. The never-ending interview. Yes, no, we will chat. Oh, we'll chat. Oh, this next question is for our guest from Prisoners Legal Services. We want to know what type of legal issues and challenges do you typically address on behalf of clients? I know you've talked a little bit about this. And I'd love to hear any examples or thoughts you have on how this work impacts the lives of your clients.
What are we currently dealing with? I think right now, clients, we've had a number of clients calling in from the maximum security facility, because there have been yet another string of assaults, including sexual assaults against clients in the max who are placed in the secure adjustment unit. So, the Criminal Justice Reform Act that passed in 2018 is essentially eliminated or was intended to eliminate the use of solitary confinement. And they're just now kind of rolling that into place. So they have removed a lot of prisoners who were placed in DDU and placed in solitary confinement at Walpool. They've moved them now to the maximum security facility into the SAU units. They that is secure adjustment unit. Yes. So they have moved them into this unit, and a lot of the privileges that these individuals were supposed to have access to, they're not being provided with those privileges. And I think because they are being vocal about that, DOC was certainly displeased, and what the end result is that there have now been over 25 prisoners who have been assaulted, 3 of which we know of who ended up in the hospital with broken knees. This type of things, these types of actions and incidents generally don't get a lot of attention in the public. Even legislators, when we had the meetings today with legislators, a lot of legislators weren't even aware of this. So again, it's left with PLS, the staff of 10 attorneys to try to address this, in addition to the litigation that we currently have pending, in addition to the legislative initiatives that we have, in addition to the individual advocacy and systemic advocacy that we're working on. So as you can imagine, we have very limited resources to devote our attention to just one thing. And so a lot of this ends up being left unresolved unless we file a suit or some type of lawsuit. The assaults that occurred in 2021, we are just now really beginning the discovery phase. And there were hundreds of individuals assaulted during that time. And DOC administrators just completely shut down access to the maximum security prison facility for legislators, for attorneys. Constitutional right is the individual have access to an attorney. They completely eliminated that option and shut us out from those facilities. And there was just a stream of these tactical individuals that literally came in black armor with shields and face masks and the whole 9, and it was just a barrage of assaults, and a lot of individuals were really seriously injured as a result of that. And things like this happen on a regular basis. I think that's one of the more extreme examples, but it's still the reality of those who are incarcerated. So by us trying to bring attention to that, making sure that the public is aware of things like this, I think it certainly does impact our clients' lives. Sometimes to their detriment, unfortunately, because DOC again has a lot of unfettered control. And so a lot of individuals who speak out end up being retaliated against. And because we have to go through all of this red tape, it's a slow process to bring about results. So that's why we also try to do a kind of multi-level advocacy. That's why we do the individual advocacy, the systemic advocacy, the litigation, because everything really doesn't bring about immediate results, which is what our clients need essentially.
Yeah. I mean, I would just add that I know it's probably difficult for you can even imagine what it's like to be in a cell, right? And so if you was just to close your eyes, imagine that you was in a bathroom, the length of the bathroom, with let's say the tub being the bed, let's say the sink being where it's at in the toilet, and you have a little tiny desk to do your writing and put your TV on. This is what you're living in 24 hours with another person on top. So that type of atmosphere by itself can create climate issues, especially if you have the wrong personality type that's put in the cell with you. That's just one of them.
I can definitely echo that.
The other thing is that I want you to think of this in terms of if this was you. And the reason why, because whether you accept it or not, everyone becomes complicit once you know that there's an ongoing problem, right? There are incarcerated Black and brown folks who are being held in high security for no reason at all. They were supposed to have been moved down to lower security. They are the last to receive everything when it comes to their institutional lives. I want you to really understand what's happening to them back there. This is just not in the men's prison, this is in the women's prison. They don't get to go down to minimums, they don't get to go down to pre-release to set themselves, and minimums is supposed to be the step when you're getting ready to get out into the world, so that you don't have no type of physical walls, to get you used to not having physical walls around you that acclimate you, right? Pre-releases is supposed to give you the development of a works habit, so that you now earn money, you save money to help your transition. Well, the vast majority of folks who are in those pre-releases are white. You may have one speckle of Black person that's in those, or two, if you're lucky, and they are held with such scrutiny that the littlest thing leads to them getting loved. This is what's happening. This is institutional. They're supposed to give them, from a hygiene perspective, 10 t-shirts and underwears and socks. They don't reduce that to 7. They don't reduce it to 5. Now, how many do they get? 3. 3 to last them for 6 months before they can get another 3. Can you imagine you can survive with 3 sets of underwear, socks for 6 months? But this is to force them to spend money that they don't have, or to be heavily reliant on their families, which don't have the money because they have to choose. Do they come visit, or do they send them the money? If they send them the money, they can't afford to come and visit and then spend money in the canteen and put money in the gas to drive back and forth. It's one or the other. The process that's in place is to break down the community and family ties. And the visiting room is no different, especially for Black and brown folks. Just on my physique, I could be wearing these clothes and be told that my clothes is too tight, therefore I can't get in treatment. If there is an interracial relationship with a white woman and a Black man, the white woman will then be subjected to the same level of scrutiny that the Black couples are always scrutinized. These are things that y'all don't even know that goes on, but it's happening on a daily basis. And the goal is to create this sphere where they shut out the community and shut out families so that they can have complete autonomy and do what they want with those behind the wall. And then when they come back to the community, most of which goes back to the Black and brown community, they come out with that trauma, and then they release that trauma onto the community. So at some point, there's a decision that we all have to make as individuals, because it's being done in our names. When they charge them Commonwealth versus whoever, well, you were part of the Commonwealth as well as me. When they incarcerate them in that way, you were part of that Commonwealth. And if you disagree with the way that these things are happening, as I'm explaining to you, then you have every right to say to the Commonwealth, who's representing in your name and in my name, that that's not the way I want you to function. After all, I want you to think about this. What type of individuals you and I will be that we will just say we can stow away and lock up a problem so that our kids can inherit it when they come of age? Can you imagine that? Because you and I failed to do what we were supposed to do, and that these individuals come out sometime when your child now is 16, 17, and something happens to them because we turned a blind eye to what was going on. It's true when they say hurt people hurt people.
Wow. Thank you. I feel like we should clap. I mean, kind of relating to that, my next question is about the emotional toll of working in this field. We've heard a lot of difficult but true things today. And I think for anyone that is considering getting into this field, we'd like to know from all of you, how do you balance, working in such a difficult field that potentially could be very emotionally draining?
So I think we really take our wins where we can get them. This is a shameless plug for PLS, but we are a very family-oriented organization. We is part of the incentive, and I think just the organization acknowledging how difficult the work is. We get great perks, but you can't really pass up. We have free healthcare. I don't know any organization that offers that, but PLS literally pays our premiums. They also give us the little bitty HRA card, so they cover our co-pays, they cover the deductibles. So I have never worked for an organization that has that type of benefits. They also provide a student loan reimbursement. As an attorney, I have.
Oh yeah.
So this was very appealing to me coming to PLS. They help with amazing vacation. I get 42 days vacation per year. I don't take it. And we're working on encouraging staff to actually take it. They actually are forcing me to take 3 weeks, beginning on the 19th. I'm kind of going kicking and screaming, but I'll be in Jamaica. So screaming will subside as soon as I get off the plane. So we definitely are very kind of family oriented atmosphere. I think that another thing that I really appreciate about PLS is that we respect each other's expertise. So whether you're an attorney, a paralegal, or a receptionist, we all are respected for what we bring to the table. And we also consider life experiences. So we have individuals who are revered as experts in certain areas who may not have gone to law school. And that kind of hierarchy has, prior to my coming to PLS, I worked for a law firm, and it was very much that kind of hierarchy there. And a little hazy. I've never experienced that with PLS. So I think this really helps, having that kind of familial environment helps with some of the stress that we encounter with the work itself. I've had hard days where I've been able to call Mac or, go into the office and just boo-hoo because, I was just traumatized about something with the client. I felt like I failed, but then he'll kind of bring me back to reality and give me the pep talk that I need. And I have tons of other coworkers who, I have that same shoulder and that same ability to talk to. So I think the environment is so very important in terms of being able to alleviate stress from the job. You can't help the severity and the nature of the work that we do. We can't really control that, but we can certainly control the environment.
So for me, I actually work from home. Our where I live is actually where our office is. so I don't have to go very far from one place to another. So my organization, we are actually 501c3, which is a nonprofit organization here in Boston. And one of the biggest, most striking points for us is trying to get grants. So bigger companies and organizations get all the grants. And it's just constant looking for grants, trying to meet the deadlines to get those grants has been the most stressing thing I could ever imagine. One thing that's most important about our organization is where everybody on our staff is all volunteer, including myself. I don't take a salary for anything I do within the organization, because anything I would have gotten, I would prefer it go to helping the clients out. And I feel that's the best use for the money that we do get. We do get money for people giving donations and things like that. I mean, there's once in a while we have some small donations, but you know, in the $150 to $100 range, which helps out big time. Because it does help with some like office supplies that we do need once in a while. But besides that, we really don't get any big grants. You know, I wish we could get more grants, but it just doesn't come when we really need it. In the past, the organization that we did work with, the organization I did work with, did get those grants, but now it's just, you have so many big organizations that are nonprofit that get those grants and we just can't get them. So that's been very stressful. Sometimes even playing phone tag with different organizations, other organizations that we work with, or it might be they might be trying to catch up with one of our clients, you know, trying to reach them by phone, or maybe their phone went haywire, or it could be a whole number of things, but it can be stressful sometimes, and it could drive me crazy. But I try to, when I'm having a time when I'm getting stressed out or just too much to get to me, I usually like to step away from what I'm doing and go say hi to my business partner, and you know, talk to him, tell him what's going on with me, and usually it works very well. Either that, I have a cat that's in our room that helps me out. I go over and pet him and kind of, well, hey, you know. Okay.
We get it. We understand. All right, I know we have about 15 minutes left. So I want to give you all the opportunity to plug yourselves. So are there any upcoming initiatives, projects, or events that your organization is involved in, which students might find particularly interesting or relevant to their future careers?
Yes, I do. Another shameless plug. We are certainly trying to garner support for a correctional oversight bill that we drafted. This bill would mandate the collection of substantive racial demographics. Just to give you a bit of background, currently no correctional facility in the country is mandated to collect a detailed racial demographic. So what that means is that we have no what services individuals are receiving and how the money, DOC's budget is being spent. And so this legislation would mandate the collection of that information. Right now, DOC only collects population trend, and population within solitary confinement. So we want to know, you know, what individuals are actually receiving mental health care, who's actually receiving substance use treatment, who is actually being employed and where, who's being disciplined for what reasons. This type of information would not only help DOC staff and advocates such as myself, but it also helps policymakers. It helps individuals interested in medical profession. COVID was a prime example. A ton of medical professionals wanted to know how BIPOC individuals inside prisons were faring with COVID, and that information wasn't accessible. So this legislation would address that. I think another key to this legislation is that it has an enforcement mechanism. DOC has a tendency to fail to comply even with the law, and there's not a lot being done to encourage them to do that. I was part of the Structural Racism and Corrections Commission, which was a legislative body charged with investigating structural racism. And it was the irony in that is that we had no data to research, to investigate. We had no information. So we were basically left with an impossible task because we couldn't point to anything. We had, of course, we had testimony, we had qualitative data, but we didn't have any quantitative data. And that's what gets people's attention. Like policymakers. They want to know the numbers. When we went to speak with legislators, even today, I thought it was so ironic and funny is that they kept asking us for data when the bill is what would produce the data. And so we kept having this circular conversation. They were saying, well, how do we know this is happening? Well, I work with prisoners every day, so that's why I know it's happening. You deal with DOC and you know that they owe you reports and data that they're not producing. So we both know that it's not happening, but yet still you want this tangible data. So it's kind of that chicken or the egg argument. So this bill would address a lot of that, and it would take it out of the hands of the DOC. Place it within the Office of the Inspector General, who rightfully has the task of preventing fraud, preventing waste, which is clearly happening within the DOC. So I think that is our biggest item on the agenda. I would love to have you all pledge your legislators phone lines and tell them, you know, this is something that's really important to the community. This is something that we want to see because, again, this data is the foundation of any type of change. We have to understand the problem before we can create solutions. So the data will give us a glimpse of what the problems actually are.
So she meant to also say, we're having an event on September 3rd. And we would love for you guys to all come out to attend that. We're gonna have a panelist discussion about family incarcerated folks. And also from the legislative body, some of which sits on the judiciary, which are building and one of the places our buildings threatening. And we also invited DOC representatives to come out and also listen, participate. You know, we're still waiting for a response for that. But pretty much, you know, we'd love for you guys to come out and actually get involved. And we'll circulate the information, the flyer to this body, and they will promote it out to you guys. And I hope to see you guys there.
First off, I just also want to, you know, kind of encourage you guys. You know, we are the people that you can vote, and voting is going on. You know, we're getting ready to vote here in the city of Boston. So I would really encourage you guys to get a hold of the people in the city council, you know, to try to get them to make changes in our city law as well. But also get involved in on a state level. Like they were saying. So that's a really good event to get involved in. I'm also involved in, I'll give a plug to one of my other, I belong to Roxbury Presbyterian Church, which is right here in Roxbury on Warren Street. And we have an organization called GBIO, called the Greater Boston Interfaith Organization. And they do a lot of stuff up at State House as well, to make changes in the laws. Back a while ago, I actually did an event up at the State House to make some changes, and we actually won the case. So they made the change in the law. So I really would tell you guys to really get involved in what's going on both state and local levels. Right now, Boston Project Rebound, we have a event coming up this Saturday at an organization called UMH, if I'm saying that correct. Mike, yeah. Property. Mike and I are going to be talking to a bunch of their people that they're so UHM Properties is basically a bunch of housing units that they own, and they're going to circulate some flyers across all their properties because they help all types of people, and they have a new thing that they're doing where they're helping people who are coming out of the correctional system, you know, whatever issues they may have. And we're having an event on this Saturday to talk to those people, and we're opening it up to eventually we're going to have one every month event like that. And I want to actually ask you guys if you want to be part of that in the future, because we're looking for something to do something like that every month. So yeah, we have some slots there later this year. So
Lots to chat about after this demo. Well, thank you to our wonderful panelists. I want to make sure we have plenty of time for any questions you all might have. So, floor is now open. Let's start in the front right here. I just have a question. Would you like a mic, Maya? Sure, yeah. There's a spare behind you.
Just use all of my muscles.
You guys think I could plug any co-ops, internships, or mentorships that your organization might have?
Very
Closer. Okay, sorry. Can you guys take a moment to plug any co-ops, internships, or mentorships that your organizations might have for students?
So I know Northeastern has the co-op. We receive a ton of students every semester through Northeastern. So anybody interested, come and see us. We also have a lot of flexibility based on the individual projects. For interns, I'm always looking for help. We're in the process of working on a documentary. We are also in the process of, we actually surveyed 1,300 BIPOC prisoners, a 51-page survey, so very comprehensive information. And we're trying to aggregate that data and come out with a report similar to the report that was produced by Justice Gantz. And Harvard students, we're trying to give that perspective in a carceral setting in correction. So we're in the process of doing that. We have a ton of other initiatives that I did not plug. We do a lot of work around equitable access to medication-assisted treatment. So anyone who's interested in the medical field, we can give you a little bit of that as well. So yes, we are always looking for interns.
For Project Rebound, sometimes because of our situation where we have a home office, we do actually we do get occasionally a person that wants to volunteer to help out. Basically what we would do is meet them in person at a safe location. And we try to see what they would be interested in working with, and we'll see what we do. If anyone's interested in working with us, by all means, get a hold of me at the end of the meeting.
If you intern with us, we can take you to the prisons.
There you go.
Anybody interested?
Is he on stage? I believe Mike has a question from this event's actually live. So from the live chat.
Do you want to tell them what's going on, Mike?
Sure. We have a viewer to ask the question: what challenges do you face with funding the work that you do? And has the city of Boston made any financial commitment, or has the mayor created a budget line item for this important and needed work?
So as far as I know, the city of Boston has put money towards the Office of Returning Citizens, but for organizations like myself, we don't get anything from the city of Boston at all. And sometimes they don't even want to recognize us as an organization here in Boston that needs the help and could use the help from the city of Boston, because most of my clients and our clients come from the city of Boston and the nearby area. So I wish they would do something more, and it's so hard to communicate with them sometimes.
We're also a nonprofit 501c3 entity, so we rely heavily on grants, on donations. We do receive some funding from the state, but we try to be independent, and so a lot of our funding comes from grants. City of Boston, can't say this, but we probably need to know more about whether or not we receive any grants. The other part of the question, Mike. The second part.
Okay, the second part was, has the city of Boston made any financial commitment, or has the mayor created a budget line item for this important and needed work?
Okay, thank you, Maya, for being our new microphone passer person. I think we have a question in this area. Pat?
I also just have a very loud voice. Can you hear me without the microphone?
Yes, we can.
So how could, the microphone's fully on. How could a person pursuing a degree in criminal justice contribute to your organizations?
Come and work for us.
Okay, let me refine. How could a person pursuing a degree in criminal justice, what would they do specifically to work for you?
Well, if you have an interest in coming to work, you can always come and interview. Once you express.
What, I think it means like what role, like.
What role?
Like without a law degree?
Yeah, without a role.
So we have, individuals who are responsible for, a lot of our media. We actually just hired somebody who's a journalist. We also have, of course, paralegals. We are also trying to, focus more on human services aspects, so we're trying to, the problem with PLS is that we could essentially hire people from a lot of different areas if we had the funding. But we have very limited funding and very small budget, and so, I think that's to say that I don't think, like, criminal justice, what is it, health services. I think there's a role to be played by everyone in this area. So it would just be a matter of creating. One thing that I love about the organization is that we try to think outside of the box, and we recognize that a lot of what has currently been taking place and happening has not worked. And so we're open and we're trying to be more flexible. We're actually undergoing a process of restructuring where we're trying to implement different roles and titles within the organization. We're looking to allow individuals to specialize in certain areas as opposed to trying to be a jack of all trades because it wasn't working. So yeah, I think someone who has a criminal justice major, I definitely see room and space on this side of the coin, because generally when I think criminal justice, I think probation or COs or the actual implementing the criminal justice, but there's tons of space on the advocacy side too.
So I think that you would learn really justice major how to advocate, which is really, what we trained in terms to do. When they come in, they have to learn how to communicate with the incarcerated community. They do visits there, back and forth, and they communicate to us what's happening on the ground. So they're very much integral in the work that we do, but also they learn the research techniques, other things that we're engaged in, some of which are working on a documentary with me or have. Previous ones have worked on documentaries with myself. So I think what Latoya is trying to express is that really it's your level of interest in what you want to do. And once we identify what you want to do, then we figure out how we can use you in the organization.
We actually, Ariana is our REICI paralegal. She just graduated criminal justice major from Suffolk, so we have a space.
So one of the things I've been thinking about, and it just comes to mind that when you're a student, when you guys are students right now, beginning to get into this field, I think one of the basic things that I'd like to do is take a bunch of people and show them what a day in the life of a person who's come out of corrections is like. Because sometimes even living in, say for instance, the 112 shelter, how bad it is, I'm sure a lot of you've heard what's been going on over there. And just showing what a person has to go through to get out to these different locations and things like that. So I think that's one thing that I would like to work on, start, doing. I know I've done it before, and I think that would give a person a really, eye to what's going on in the street.
Totally. Thank you, Pat. I think there was another hand in this area. The mic is, there you go.
Yes, I'm not sure if I know everyone here, but I know there are, I'm sure many people here tonight that may be considering a career in criminal law and things like that. What advice would you give to someone, let's say, that would like to be a defense attorney, and they also care a lot about prison reform and advocacy for prisoners, but they also have a job to do in the criminal justice system as it is built now, and as you guys have said, that doesn't mean that it has to be that way forever. These things can change if we put the work in it. I guess what advice would you offer someone that is looking to be part of the system, but also is trying to make sure that it is just for everyone?
A criminal defense attorney's job is to provide bail with advocacy. for their client. So without regard to what the system looks like, your priority is your client. What's in the best interest of the client. So I don't think that there would necessarily be, I think the problem is that a lot of people, and I'm not gonna name the agency, I'm just gonna say individuals who may not have the resources and the money to pay for that level of defense aren't getting it when it's being provided as a service for lower income individuals. That's the problem. That's how a lot of individuals end up on the wrong side of the justice system, and I think not receiving the zealous advocacy that our Constitution is supposed to ensure.
So one of the organizations I'm aware of is CPCS.
I'm
And
not that.
I know what I'm saying. I know they're constantly, a lot of the particular attorneys for that organization, they're so overworked because they get such large caseloads, and they definitely need help with doing paralegal and meeting with different clients and helping them out. So, I'm hoping you guys do get involved in, the criminal justice system and really begin to get help out. They really need help.
Well, I would say to your question, and I think it's a real good question. I think people undervalue when you have someone that truly fights, right? I think that, not all attorneys, defense attorneys are like that. You have some defense attorneys who actually care about what they do and how they do it. And for a client, that's everything, because that client's life is really in your hands, literally, right? And I think that there's two things I would offer you. You would have to distinguish between two sets of clients. One, that you would have to really do more advocacy for in making decisions on their behalf, because they are just not as informed and understand how to exercise choices that you present, right? You may tell them, hey, here's how the case looks, here's one strategy we can go, here's another strategy we can go. You might have to exercise what you think is the best strategy overall, because that person may not be in position to. Then there's the different type of client who is well informed, and then your role changes, right? Because, and I say this because you'll run across these two types of clients all the time, right? What I find is that most attorneys, when they run across a well-informed client, that for whatever reason, it kind of almost puts them in a position of feeling like, hey, I went to school for this, don't tell me what to do, right? And I think that's such a wrong attitude, because you work for them, it's not the other way around. And I think that when you never lose perspective of that you work for them, and that your role as it relates to them is to give them the best advice moving forward. And it's their decision ultimately what they want to do with their life. If you keep those things in mind, I think you're going to present an excellent.
I think that's also, I remind myself of that too, is that when I engage with clients, I make sure that I don't take on this, like, our philosophy is community. So my job is to amplify my client's story, not to be the voice, but to actually amplify and translate the needs and the wants of my client. So as long as you keep that in mind and you don't come into a situation with mentality, I went to this Ivy League school and I know all of this, I know what's best for you, and you actually allow the client to take part in their situations, I think you'll be an excellent.
So one of the things I kind of would recommend is that, if you want to get involved in this type of work, spend some time in the courthouse, in the courtrooms, and that's where you see all the stuff. Whatever the case may be, spend time in the courthouse.
Make it a good idea of what you don't want. What you don't want to, you don't want to be.
Yeah, well, thank you guys very much for your advice, I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I think we have another question to these.
I see a question over here.
Okay, I just think that you have.
Yeah, I see a hand over here. so-
Another hand,
Yeah, her.
here comes Maya with the microphone.
Line up here.
Thank you, Maya.
My pronouns are actually enough, but you said that one of the focuses of. You said that one of the focuses of PLS is mental health. Is there any, I guess, focus or task force that is specific to like juvenile mental health in the system, or any focus on minors in the system?
No, she's asking about is like the brain issues.
Are you asking specifically to PLS or?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, all the close.
So no, we don't focus on juveniles because we don't come across juveniles. We are generally, by the time they get to the state facilities, they've already aged out.
I believe, just for clarification, you're asking about those who are like juvenile lifers that only receive time and been, but they was convicted as juveniles, is that what you're asking?
Is like any connection with focus on the mental
Oh, are
health
you
juveniles
talking-
in the system.
Yeah, she's
Oh.
It's my pronouns are they not.
Oh,
They're
okay,
not people who aged out.
oh, okay.
So yeah, that's not an area that we focus on.
It is an important one though. I know a lot of people in our organization have expressed interest in learning more about what happens in the juvenile system in corrections, so that's definitely something we'll chat about as a group. Any other questions? Oh, perfect.
Hi, I know before you had said, ma'am, that there in PLS, a lot of people who kind of spoken about the hierarchy, and how there isn't necessarily one in your organization, that's something that stood out to you. And that's something obviously that you mentioned is vastly different in a lot of kind of generic law firms and that kind of different sort of realm of legal work. How do you, I guess I was just wondering like what your backgrounds are, and your educational background, your life experience, or whatever you think that us as students could bring in kind of unconventional ways that ways like PLS would appreciate, besides just a basic legal.
So before I went to law school, I was actually a substance use counselor and PLS, when we do like hiring or experience, they generally focus, well, I came in, of course, as an attorney, but I also was credited for my experience as a substance use counselor. So that's something where PLS, and Matt can talk about his experiences, but it's something that just as an organization, we take into consideration. So I also received credit for working in a clinic prior to coming into the organization. We also try to hire formerly incarcerated individuals, and that expertise, we acknowledge that as expertise, and so that's credited. So I think that the life experience varies. We look for individuals who are not only passionate about the work, but also individuals who may have had impacted families. That's considered as expertise and experience and credited. So I think it really varies, and because we address such a wide array of issues, you can come in with experience in healthcare, and that can be considered as expertise. It just depends upon whether or not it's an issue that we're addressing in the organization.
All right, Maya has the microphone again. Do I see a hand? All right, I think we have time for one more question. There's a hand in the back on the right. Thank you, Maya.
I'm not sure if you guys answered this question, I did come a little late, but I was gonna ask, like, as like people who had experiences in the justice system, what would you say, when is the time to like cross that line with your client and let them know, like, okay, we're gonna now take this my way, like,
I know like as a lawyer, you're supposed to be an advocate for others, but like there's sometimes where they tend to be like hard-headed, and I don't know, like, was there like an experience where you like had that issue and you're like, okay, like there's a better way to do this, I think we should go more.
I don't agree with that philosophy, so I would never tell a client, okay, now we're gonna do it my way.
No.
I work for them.
No, I understand, like how I said it was like in kind of like the way, but I meant like more like there's a better way to get a better outcome.
So your job as an attorney is to clearly present all of the options that the client has before them. And then, but ultimately, at the end of the day, it's always the client's decision. So you may leave court saying, you know, I didn't want the client to plead, or the client should have been willing to testify, but the client refused. So there's really nothing that you can do about that. Because again, you work for that individual. Your job is to provide zealous advocacy for your client, but you can't make the decision for your client. And that's not only in criminal law, but civil litigation, like with settlements. We have had countless opportunities to settle cases, but a client has said, no, I don't like the terms. Go back and negotiate for this. And as an attorney, you have to go back and do what your client asked you to do and negotiate for those terms. No matter if you think this is the best possible deal that you could get, if you don't take it, all bets are off and it's off the table. If your client says no, that's what you have to go back and report.
I would echo that, right? Like, I know it's probably you can't really conceptualize it right now because you're saying, look, obviously this is the right decision, and therefore I'm just going to do right by the client regardless of the fact. But what Latoya is saying is actually true, because the client has to come to his or her own terms about what they want to do with their life. It's their life. It's not yours. And so therefore it becomes their decisions. You have to think of it in terms of that. If the roles were reversed and it was you sitting in that chair and you thought differently than your attorney presenting those options to you, and the attorney is saying, well, I think this is the good way to go, which an attorney could say, hey, this is the best route we should take. If not, you may be facing this and that. And you feel like, I didn't do nothing. I don't deserve to do no time, right? Then the attorney can't say, well, regardless of the fact, I'm still gonna plead you out to that. I mean, how would you feel about that? Right? You have to do, you're being robbed of the autonomy to say for yourself, look, I'm not going to do time for something that I didn't do. And in fact, that's what you're saying, that if you're presented with a circumstance in which you may not win a trial, and this is the best that you might can get for that person, you're saying you should exercise that option for that person and send them to jail against that person's will. You see, when you hear it that way, it sounds differently, right? Did you hear me?
Oh, no, I got it. As soon as she said it, like, you can't put your decisions in front of others when you can't dictate what's going on in someone else.
Right. I think you always have to put yourself in that circumstance also, right? Like, you have to really look at it. If you was in that position and you felt strongly about that position, how would you feel?
Out of the empathy role, we also have rules that we have to abide by.
Absolutely.
We have the professional duties and responsibility. So if you violate that, you can face disciplinary action.
You lose your license.
Well, thank you to first our panelists. One more. We really appreciate you all being here, and thank you to you all for being a wonderful audience, for your wonderful questions. We do have about 15 minutes for us to disperse. You're welcome to chat to the panelists. I think we're all just gonna disperse and mingle. And if you are heading out, thank you for being here. Have a great night.